Hey, what's up, B fam? You are in for a treat as we continue our blended and redeemed book club. And I have been having guests on with us, just like you would in a traditional book club. You read the same book, you get together and you talk about some important key issues in there. That is what we are doing throughout the month of September. And honestly, it may even go a little bit longer just because this book has so many good practical things and we don't want to rush through it too much. So today I have Heidi from Marriage in Motion 365, and she is here to help share her perspective and viewpoint. Her and her husband Kenny are in the field of helping other marriages that are on the brink of divorce, or they're remarried and having issues, or just helping keep your marriage healthy and strong so that be preventative and not get into all of the hardships that come along with marriage. So I can't wait to hear her perspective on today's topic. And then today's topic is also kind of controversial because it is about prioritizing certain things in your marriage. And we believe here at Enjoying Your Blended Family, and I know that Heidi has this same belief as well. And then we may have Ginger from the Family Core popping in with us in just a bit. And then Vanessa and Scott from Blended Kingdom Family. We believe in the order of God, then your marriage, then your kids. And if you are in a step family, you may have some of those things out of whack, maybe because you didn't know better, or maybe you've heard people say this before and you're like, there is no way that I am putting another person, another grown adult that could possibly leave me in front of my spouse, or I'm not putting a hypothetical God before my own flesh and blood here. And so it is a very like sensitive topic for some people, but I think as we break it down today, you'll have a little bit more clarity and walk away with some tips on how to do that. And so we're going to get into that right after this.
Hey, welcome to Enjoying Your Blended Family. I'm Randall.
And I'm Scarlett.
This podcast is all about strengthening your blended family relationships
And having more fun.
giving you hope and encouragement so everyone is enjoying the journey together. New episodes come out every Monday and Friday. Mondays, we talk on a hot topic that are in blended families.
And Fun Fridays are all about ideas you can use to create more fun memories together in your family.
We truly believe the more fun you have together, the less problems you'll see.
So let's have some fun and enjoy this episode. All right, so we're back. And Heidi, before we get into it, will you just tell our B fam, in case they haven't heard you guys yet, just a little bit about you and then your connection with BKF, Blended Kingdom Family, and how we met as well?
Absolutely. Thanks, Scarlett. I really appreciate you having us on today. Kenny and I are a blended family. We've been together 17 years now, and between the two of us, we have 5 children, and we now have 7 grandbabies, so that's a blessing. And we met, like you, Blended Kingdom Family at the conference, but also through XO Marriage. I know they have a big part to play there. And we love helping couples just learn how to do marriage God's way. And being a blended family ourselves, we're really passionate about making sure that a blended family does not end in divorce. And we're making sure that the families and the children just break that generational curse of divorce. So we're so passionate about making sure that we don't repeat those same things in our new marriage that we had in the previous marriage.
Yeah. So, and we need so many more people like you guys doing this, especially when it comes to the blended family. So we love to bring in as many resources of people that can have the understanding, not just that why marriage is important, but how to do it well in your second marriage, because we want this to be your last marriage. And like I mentioned in chapters 1 and 2 that we were reading from Blended and Redeemed, that Scott had mentioned, like, how many resources did he find? 0. Why did he find 0 resources? Because he didn't even know to look for these resources. So I love the ability that we have with social media now and different connections and conferences that are out there, that we're able to speak to the family, because we believe that the family is really the heart of all of it. And the enemy wants to destroy the family, because if he can do that, then he's destroying the individuals as well. And then he can have his way. And so we're going to get into it. Okay, we're going to do chapter 3 today. So if you're like, this is your first time catching our podcast and you're like, what's going on here? Again, we're doing a book club, which we haven't really done on here. We've highlighted books before, but we've never done them in series like this. And Blended and Redeemed, or BKF, Blended Kingdom Family, is doing a breakthrough conference at the end of September. So we thought, what a better way to highlight this coming together in a conference. And we went last year. That's where we met Heidi and Kenny and Ginger as well from the Family Core. We met them at the conference, and then it just sparked this relationship. And so when you are together, it is so powerful. And the things that Scott and Vanessa are teaching, and they're bringing in experts in that area as well. So I thought, let's take the book and let's break it into parts and just talk about it. Talk about some of the big things, the issues that we see in blended families, some of the controversial issues that we see, and just have conversation around it. And so if you're joining in on that, go find you a copy of this book. You can buy it pretty much anywhere that you can buy books. We got ours on Amazon. We pre-ordered it. We were so excited that they were writing this. And so when it came in, we got it, but now I got it on audio as well. And so I can listen to it and get the stuff going in through my head, because I have a harder time reading a physical copy. So if you're like, yeah, but I don't read, get the audio version so that you can listen to it in your car rides, because this is stuff that will change your life, change your marriage, change your family, and generations to come. So just letting you know, this, like I said earlier, this chapter that we're talking about today, chapter 3, is all about your priorities to have a healthy marriage. And those 3 priorities are God first, then your marriage, then your children. And if you do it right, I love that the book highlighted, if you do it right, no one really knows that they're not top priority. Did you read that part, Heidi?
Yeah, I love that. It's not that it's sneaky, it's just it's really showing where your heart is set, I think, so that God has to be first. And then when you're filled by God and the Holy Spirit, then you can overflow into your spouse, and then you together can overflow into your children. So nobody feels lacking, nobody feels out of place. It's just a great way to do it. And hey, listen, when God makes something, he doesn't make it to fail, and he designed it. So who better to go to than how to do marriage God's way? And that's exactly the order that he talks about in the word.
Yes. Would you say, just from your own personal experience, because y'all been blending a while now,
Yeah.
and did you start out with it in the right priority? Do you feel like you have it in the right priority now? Or like it says in the book, in the questions that it asked, which really was a little convicting to me. If I looked at my planner or looked at my schedule, would it look like I had it in the right
Yeah.
order? So how about you?
Well, absolutely. We did not have it in the right order when Kenny and I first got together. And I think, like a lot of women, especially, we grow up hearing from society that once you have children, you're a mom and that's your top priority. And so it's not that putting your kids first is like, we should put our kids first in a sense. So it's not a bad thing, but it's not God's design. And especially for a blended family, I know for Kenny and myself, I had that mama bear protectiveness over my own children, my biological children. And it was like, nope, I'm going to protect them no matter what. And Kenny necessarily didn't hear that from me, but he felt it in my actions. And so he got jealous a lot of times of what I was doing for the kids and putting them before him. So we learned the hard way that really that's not how God wants it in your marriage.
Yeah, and I don't, yeah, it is tough when you've gone through a marriage before and you've seen that ends. Like, your blood is your blood. They're always going to be your
Yeah.
kids. But you've seen that spouses leave and the devastation from that. So it really is that mentality of like, how dare I put anyone else above this? But Scott tells a story in the very beginning of the book. And man, it was one of those like jaw dropping moments where he's explaining how he's counseling this couple. And I'm going to just do my briefing instead of like reading it from the book. Again, get the book, listen to it, whatever, because when you do a book club, you're just highlighting certain parts. And this is so full that we can't at all touch all the points that they have in here for all the tips that you need or all the different stories. But he was counseling a couple, and they were experiencing kind of like what Heidi was just talking about, where the woman would not put her husband in that position before the kids. And Scott is explaining to them, like, your marriage needs to come first. You need to prioritize this. And she just straight up says, I'm sorry, I won't do it. And unfortunately, you know, that was that moment opening the eyes of the husband of like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be in a marriage where the children are always coming first. And the marriage unfortunately came to an end. And how heartbreaking is that for these children that are now having to experience another divorce in their life? And that's what we do not want for you guys. We want you to do it in the correct order. Like they're saying here, and like Heidi was talking about, do it in the right order, do it God's way, so that he is pouring into you so that you can show up as a better spouse. And then when you show up as a better spouse and y'all are pouring into your marriage, y'all are showing up as better parents. In reality, you are putting the kids first by putting God first and by putting your spouse first. So then I just wanted to highlight, I've been like going through and just marking all of these different areas that really stood out to me here. And another part of that is the busyness. And this is where our whole life, we still struggle with this. This is where it was like, I needed this. I needed to hear this word even right now. And that is, I'm going to read a little bit from this because it was just really speaking to me. And it's on page 57. It says, the problem for so many couples is that our schedules usually don't offer us free time to spend with the Lord, which is ironic considering he is the author of time. He created it so that we could spend our days and hours with him being our creator, the Father, our Lord, and not distant from him. When God isn't our top priority, he only gets our leftovers. We give him the time we have left over after work, left over after dinner with our spouse, left over after getting the kids to bed, left over after 2 hours of mindless television. God doesn't want our leftovers, nor does he deserve the lack of attention. He wants our first fruits. And it gives biblical principle there from Exodus 23:19 and 34:26 and Deuteronomy 26:2. He wants our best, and he wants it first, and he deserves every bit of it. So that I thought was just powerful in the perspective of like, that is so true. That is the life that we live. And I'm going to let Ginger is here. I'm going to let her in. And then Heidi, will you express just your opinion on that? Because I know you and I, before we pushed record, we were talking about that busyness and like really maybe some of your struggles, or if you've overcome those, or things that you're doing to combat that in your life. But let me let Ginger in. Guys, so we are back and we have Ginger in now from the family court. The time zone differences, this always a little bit tricky, and Ginger is in Arizona. And so the my time, your time conversation, we got a little bit off, but I'm so glad that she went ahead and jumped on in. So we're going to let Heidi answer this question, and then Ginger's going to share her perspective on the busyness of our culture and God getting our leftovers, and what are some things that you can do to make sure you're prioritizing him first.
Well, I think each person has to deal with this question differently because we are all given strengths by God. So for myself, I'm very disciplined anyway. And I love me a calendar. I love a time block schedule. So what I do every night before I go to bed is I plan my day then before I even start my day. So my top priority on there is always Bible and God. So I already go to bed knowing that my first fruits are going to God the next morning. And if that means I have to get up 15 minutes early, I get up 15 minutes early. And that hasn't always been that way. But what I love to talk about, and we see it in this picture here on page 56, that I call it the love triangle with God, is that if I am pursuing God first and running towards God, I'm also running towards my spouse because they're doing the same thing. And actually, me pursuing a relationship with God first really makes my marriage better. So I don't even, have to, I mean, obviously they're a priority, but if I'm putting God first, then my spouse kind of comes along with that. And so for me, I make it a priority by putting it on my schedule. And especially in this busy time, even a chapter in the scripture a day is better than zero time. And so whatever you have to do, 15 minutes early, go to bed 15 minutes earlier, turn off the TV, turn off the Netflix before that, stop scrolling on your phone. We just have to make it a habit. We all brush our teeth twice a day. Why can't we spend time with God twice a day minimum? We learned
Right.
growing up to do it that way. So just do it and put it in your schedule, and it becomes a habit the more you do it.
Sure. Heidi, I'm glad that you brought in technology because you can, on the Bible app, I do that same thing. On the Bible app, I just set my notifications. So that notification goes off when my alarm goes off. So I know what time I need to get up, and then I have a banner notification. And we still have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old at home. So sometimes their schedule is a little off and they'll kind of dominate over my morning time. But I keep that banner on there until I have addressed it. So if I don't have that opportunity first thing, it's always a reminder that it's there. And then once I get the kids off to school, I can take that time, whether it be 5 minutes or 15 minutes, I can take that time. And then that way I clear that banner, and then I have a notification later in the day as well. So
That's awesome.
my husband's prayer time is different than mine. He is a 2 or 3 a.m.er, and I am not a 2 or 3 a.m.er, maybe 5 or 6. But his notifications are different. But there's always that reminder. And then, like you said, you're pursuing your spouse. If you're pursuing the Lord, because he's doing it as well, we just do it at different times. But the priority is still set there for the family. And I believe that, and I'm sure you guys can see this as well in your blend, if you're pursuing it, your children pursue it, and they see dad pursuing it, they see mom pursuing it different times throughout the day, and they want to do that as well. They want to mirror that as well.
Man, I love hearing, like, I almost like want to tear up. Not that I've already been a little emotional today. So like, it doesn't take much, once you've, unleashed the floodgates. But just hearing y'all's different perspectives, because we are in different life journeys, right? In different times, and having different personalities and different ways to do it. And to be able, some of the things are very common in what we're doing. Some of the things are exactly when I read the things in this book and I'm like, are Scott and Vanessa going to think that we copy them when we talk about the same stuff? Because this is what we do. But no, we had to learn this stuff the hard way because we've done so much of this wrong for so long, which is why I say if you had this book in the early days, like, man, how beneficial it would have been for us to understand this instead of having to go through it ourselves. But all of like your different ways of spending that time with God and how that looks different. And like for me, I have to have accountability. And so I'm a 5 a.m.er. Okay. So not 2 or 3 or whatever, but I get up whatever an hour is before the rest of my family. And so if that changes because it's summertime or, my kids being at home and their work schedule, whatever it looks like, I need an hour before everybody else. And that's when I spend time with God. And that's when I read the word. And so for me, though, I was finding myself waking up, going to the couch and falling right back asleep because you're trying to read the word and, it's early and you're tired, especially if you didn't get to bed early enough, just like when you pray before you go to sleep and you fall asleep praying. And so I created a group so that I have people depending on me. And because I have people depending on me to show up, and right now it's at 6 a.m., it's changed over the couple of years that I've done this, then it makes me get up and read the word so I can go talk about it. And so maybe even like that's just another idea of prioritizing God is that, okay, you find people, a community to join you, or some accountability. They even have it on the Bible app where you can sync together on plans so that you can read some stuff, and then they can also read it, and then you can come together and talk about it. You just don't want to make it to where it's all about you and these other people, because we do want to keep that the priority is you and God. And I love in the book, it breaks it down in some practical ways of starting simple, like you were saying, Heidi, is, if it's just one chapter a day, picking one chapter like you're doing, Ginger, with your technology is giving you your verse on there and having that reminder sent to you, picking that one and reading the word, because that is the truth and we need to get it in. Then praying, because that is going to put the word into motion, right? And then also being quiet, which is the part I struggle with. Yeah. If y'all have some pointers on that, but being quiet and waiting for letting God actually have some input on not just let me rub you like a genie in a bottle and tell you everything I want and need from you, but actually being quiet and letting him speak to you as well. So, well said. Either of y'all have any or quiet time, being able to focus, or how you hear from God most?
Sure. Do you want to take that one first, Heidi?
Sure. Thanks, Ginger. Well, first of all, I hear from God mostly through scripture. That's how he speaks to me. Now, Kenny, on the other hand, he gets visions. So we both hear from God differently. So for me, I think it's amazing how, let's say, he'll send me to a specific book in the Bible, and then lo and behold, whatever's popping off the chapter to me is something I'm going through, or that I've prayed about, and here's the answer. But I think it's just, even in my quiet time, I'll set a 3 to 5 minute timer where I'm literally just sitting quietly, because I have a tendency, like you said, Scarlett, is to like, so God, blah, 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 amen. And, and want to do that. But I have to leave room for him to talk to me. It's a two-way street, my relationship with God, not just Heidi. And then God, you're there if I need you. Like you said, genie in the bottle. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. I don't feel like it's cheating because it's intentional for me, but I've actually set on my Bible app up so that I get the verse of the day. I read it. They also have somebody that commentates it and they give their perspective, but right underneath that, I have it set up so I have meditated Bible time. So it feeds you the information. You can choose to do it quietly, or you can have background music that comes with it. And it encourages you from the start. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and it walks you through it more methodical than I would normally do it on my own. And so walking me through it methodically, telling me to breathe everything out, read a scripture, talk to God about what it means to you. There's the downtime between, and then once you're ready, another verse will kick back up, and it takes you through several of those, but then it also earmarks prayers that you've had for yourself. So obviously it's going to be different for everybody. So whatever season I'm in, I always have 3 priority prayers that I can pray over everything in my life, pray over my husband for work, and then pray over my kids that, they're off doing their thing. So I always make sure that I structure it so that I'm covering everything that he has said to me, and then I'm covering my each individual family member. And there's, like you guys know, when you have adulting children, or even children that are just going into the marketplace or school place, they have different prayers and different needs at different times and different seasons. So I'm not specifically praying over all 5 children. I'm just taking those 3 prayers and putting them where they need to. And then I take the ending time and let God speak to me, even though I choose to have music in the background, but it's a light, like violin music. But that is my time to just breathe through. And of course it says, stay as long as you want to. Some days it's longer than others. But again, that's how I bracket out my quiet time with him. I go through those steps and then I move on.
Yeah, because I haven't seen that I have the Bible app, and I use it in the morning. That's what I read from. And then I come to my physical Bible. But I don't, because I'm on my own little study thing, I don't do like all the updated stuff, because they have really taken it next level. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Really? And so I'll have to check that out. And I love that because the scripture says like his sheep will hear his voice, right? He's a shepherd and his sheep can hear his voice. So I love that how y'all are saying like he speaks to you guys in different ways as well. Because like for me, he will speak to me in my dreams, or he may speak to me through an analogy, through something I'm doing, and it's like a physical thing I'm doing, but then I see the correlation, and like Heidi's really big with that in her post on like it might be a picture, I think it was a picture of like an insect or something last week, and
Yeah.
and it's like you seeing these metaphors in life. And so God really does speak to us in those different ways. And it's not, I think sometimes we can get in our head like quiet and we just have to like just just sit there like I don't hear a voice. And it's not a audible voice. Typically for some it may be, but it's in these different ways that he's speaking to us. So thank y'all for clarifying that as well. That way people aren't sitting here like, spend time with God, he's not talking to me, I want him to, but he must not love me as much as he loves those guys over at the Family Core or Marriage in Motion 365. Like, so okay, those were like, that was a lot of good tips right there. And some of the things they said in the book and getting it started is reading the 1 chapter a day, set aside time to pray, and devote 10 to 15 minutes of quiet time. So I think we covered that pretty good. And then it goes into that priority of marriage. So we have God. That's how we're putting him first. We just gave you some very practical tips that you could walk away with today, putting God first in your marriage and what that is supposed to, because I think in our heads we can get like, oh, put God first. Then that means like our husband has to, obviously it looks like he comes second. And we have to let him know, I'm not doing what you said because God's more important to me, like, right. Or it has to be like this weird religious kind of thing that comes along with it on putting God first, when that's not what it means at all. And so now we go into prioritizing putting your marriage first. And Scott also covers the fact of it's the same thing. Like our marriage doesn't need our leftovers. Just like God doesn't want our leftovers, our spouse doesn't want everything, that we put all these things in order and we don't put him up there as a priority. And God was convicting me on this week as I was really thinking, because of the way the book asks. It says, if you looked at your calendar, you looked at your time, are you putting, like if that was just the factor, not your heart, not your mind, not what you think you do, but if you looked at your calendar, does it look like you put your spouse first? Does it look like you put your kids first? And so Riley and I were having this really deep conversation this morning about the fact that I feel like I don't put Randall first according to those things. And she sat there for a minute and then she's like, you do put him first. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do, those are all things you're doing for him. And I'm like, yeah, but I guess in my head, those are all acts of service, which is my love language, but it's not necessarily how he receives love. So I'm not meeting that certain needs that I think in my head, I need to do better at this, this, and this, or it's not us going out or away from the house. And, or with the kids, like we put work above, if you looked at my calendar, work is the thing that looks like it's most important to me. And so I think it's twofold. I think we can get our stuff all out of whack in this busy culture that we live in. But I think we can also beat ourselves up and not give ourselves enough credit for what we are doing as wives and mothers. So what is y'all's thought on that? Do you want to go first this time, Ginger, and then we'll let Heidi pick it up after?
Sure. I'll go first. Putting marriage as a priority. Like you said, we all have different love languages. And so it's important that you identify those, although scripture says that you are two and then you become one. So it's important that you find out what those are for your spouse. James and we don't believe in that whole like opposites attract kind of thing. So a lot of our needs are the same, but it doesn't mean that our love language is the same. So I know men predominantly view like I'm doing what their view is I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because I go to work and I provide, and you have a nice house and you have a nice car and you have this and you have that. And those things are seen as I'm doing the baby steps, you know, and women on the other hand go to the other extreme, that they just want that one-on-one time, and they need touch, and they need as much, if not more, the physical to do time one-on-one. And so it's important that you do not only, well, and then I'm going to throw the blend on top of there too, because you have other components in a blend. Your time is cut short, or your time is cut in half, or your time needs to be divided, and then you still need to focus on everything else. But just trying to find out or make sure that you're intentional with the time that you do have, because you may only have 5 minutes in the morning with your spouse because you're doing the other acts of service that your spouse needs, but also trying to set time aside at the end. James and I try to be very structured, raising 5 children, and the 3 are now out of the house, but it was really important for us to say, it is absolutely bedtime. Mom and dad are going to spend time together now, and structure out that time so that you can, whether you're talking about, you know, what happened in that day, what needs to happen tomorrow, what happened at work, whatever those things are, those are things that still need to be identified between the spouses in your marriage, so that you're giving each other actual like FaceTime. I think that you probably see that, Heidi, with Marriage in Motion, is when you delete or not prioritize the FaceTime with each other, one-on-one, face-to-face, or actually laying next to each other, talking through all of those, you know, human events, you start to see a decline. And it's not only emotionally, it's physically, and everywhere else you start to decline if you don't set that as a priority.
I think, Ginger, the thing that I just really appreciate you said was the word intentional. That's the goal, I think, in anything, in our walk with God, our walk with our spouse, being a mother, being of service to the community, all of it has to be intentional. And really, if you show me your calendar or whatnot, I'll see where your heart is. And so you talked about that, Scarlett, and really that's what it's all about, is what is your heart pointed to, and being intentional. And so another good thing you said, Ginger, is it only has to be 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, as long as you're intentional about making that touch point every day. One thing that we see the most in our coaching practice and through XO is that people did not learn how to do that from their family of origin. And they bring either trauma or unrealistic expectations about what that should look like. So they either have a skewed view of, well, that should be my whole day, should be my spouse. Or the other spouse is like, my parents were married for 40 years and never talked. Isn't that what it's supposed to be? So what we have to do is really understand where we came from, what God's word says, and then implement those intentionally in our marriage. And that could mean putting it on your schedule, getting a babysitter. I mean, pursuit is huge. We have to be pursuing our spouse constantly. The day you get married, it's not over. The work has just begun.
Right. Yeah, pursuing is a big thing. I think I heard a statistic yesterday that the average American touches their phone screen, checks it at a minimum of 180 times a day. So if you can touch your phone screen over 100 times a day, you can touch or connect or text or something with your spouse. And I'm not saying that it needs to be that way every day, but if you intentionally reach for a device, you can intentionally reach for, you know, and I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy for kids. Like you say, it's generational. I think it's healthy for the kids to see that. I'm sure all 5 of our children would say that, you know, mom and dad are weird, because I don't care if he passes me in the hallway or he's, you know, busy doing something. I have no problem interrupting him by touching him. And the kids are like, that is so gross. But it's really, it's actually teaching them that I'm checking in, I'm physically touching, I'm physically checking in. I'm, you know, and they learn that he is my priority. And we've actually physically said it and verbally said it to our children. Like, you're going to need to wait. I'm checking in with mom, or she's speaking, or he's speaking, and this is our touch. And the kids start to learn that that's a priority.
Yeah, it's, and they talk about that in here as well, as about, and like both of y'all said, it doesn't have to be a long time, like, but you make it a habit of checking in on a daily basis and having that FaceTime, having that conversation. And what's funny, and maybe I'm just a weird human being, I'm just going to tell you about a weird thing that I do.
I love when you do this.
It's been like 2 weeks now that I have tried to change this. When I realized it, I had saw a reel about this woman like that decided she was going to start greeting her husband at the door when he comes in
Oh,
from
I
work.
saw that.
Did you
I
see
saw
that?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, well, and it, like, how much of a difference that it made, that she was so excited that he's home that she stops what she's doing and she runs, like, to let him know, like, I'm so glad you're here. And with Randall working outside of the house now, and we're in a different season where we were together so much and now he's gone, and trying to maneuver that. Well, I'd gotten this weird thing, like, that I'll be in the kitchen, like, cooking dinner, and I'll hear the door, and for some reason I'll, like, want to act like I didn't even notice he came in. I don't know, like, what is that even about? Like, it's weird. Like, why do I want to be like, oh, oh, I'm busy here, like, doing this, and you just happen to come in? And when I watched that reel, and I thought, why do I do that? That is kind of weird. So I was like, I'm going to stop and be intentional about when I hear that, because we have a little passcode on our door, whatever. So I hear him come in, and stop what I'm doing and go greet him as close as I can to the door. I usually don't make it all the way like there, but I stop and turn to him and acknowledge him, give him a kiss, and then, can go back to what I'm doing. And I used to do the same weird thing at night. Like, if I go to bed before him and I hear him starting to shut down the living room, and I'll have been scrolling. I'm telling y'all my deep, dark secrets, okay? I will have just been scrolling mindlessly, and I hear him shutting everything off, and I'll turn the phone off, and I'll lay my head down and sleep. And I don't know if it's a guilt, like, oh, I said I was going to sleep a long time ago and I didn't, and now I better, like, I'm going to get in trouble by daddy or something, like, that I wasn't in bed, or I'm, afraid of what he's going to expect when he comes. So then it's like, okay, let me just, like, I'm tired, I want to go to sleep, but I wasn't tired for 20 minutes of mindless scrolling. And so these are some of those, like, little things that I think we make very bad habits, like y'all are saying, of just going through life and not being intentional on those relationships. And it's these little changes that we can make, of telling the kids, hold on. That is a clear way that you can show them that I prioritize my marriage so much that I want to know what your dad has to say. Or if you're a man listening, I want to know what your mom has to say. Or it is important for us to model this to our kids. So let's shut everything down and let's go have, family meeting time, or checking in on our marriage that's uninterrupted by kids. So we put them to bed, and we view that bedtime as sacred. They go to sleep so that we can have our time. So that's some great advice that you were giving. And it was talking too about, like, those spiritual intimacy, the physical intimacy, all of those, financial intimacy. Like, I hadn't really thought of it in that way, but about carving out that time to get on the same page, and how, like, usually one person takes the lead, but both of you need to be on board with what that looks like. So I think I said emotional intimacy. And then there
Scarlett,
anything on any of that y'all wanted to add?
Yeah, I was going to say the one thing about spiritual intimacy I want to talk about, and this is a very alarming statistic that we have read through BANA. And 1 in 3 Christian marriage couples will face divorce if they do not pray together as a couple on a regular basis. So that should scare you enough to pray with your spouse. And then the statistic jumps, like, you have 1,000% chance of your marriage doing better just by praying with your spouse. So think about that. 1 in 3 Christian couples, if they do not pray regularly with their spouse, will end in divorce. That is a scary statistic. Right. But it also lets you know, how important that is to have that spiritual connection with your spouse. So I just want to share that with the viewers, because I think if you can, like, almost put that on a Post-it note, that'll, even if it just scares you straight, to, like, start praying. Right. Get over there and pray with your spouse.
Well, and I think prayer, since it's it's been shown that it's so individual and it's your relationship with God. If you're not intentional in your marriage or in your blended family, that teaching your kids that it's okay to pray in front of or with your spouse or even with each other, people become uncomfortable praying in a circumstance where it's more than just them and God. So what we try and do at our dinner table is we rotate the prayer. So we rotate who's saying the prayer. And, our 5-year-old has a set prayer that he does, and that's fine. But when it's the 9-year-old's time to pray, or any of the other adult children, or even ourselves, we make sure that we guide them and say something that you're thankful for and pray for somebody specifically that is in need, or we give them some type of idea that they can add to their prayer. It's really just teaching them that it's okay to pray openly and in front of other members, so that when they do become spouses, eventually, that they're accustomed to not only praying for other people publicly at the dinner table or wherever, but it's okay to speak with your spouse and share, most importantly, share those prayers and those desires that you're sharing with God with your spouse, because they may not know what your struggle is, or maybe it's something that you want to share with your spouse in prayer and not directly because you're working through it with God. So it's important to also train your children up, showing them that it's important to pray with your spouse and openly with your family or in your community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it is like a secret weapon. It really is, if we would use it, what God has given us to come together. And it is awkward, and you do have to get past it. And that, I've been in so many surroundings where people don't want to pray out loud because they're embarrassed, and God just wants us to speak to him, just like as if we were speaking to him on our own time or speaking to a friend. And he wants that. And we can do that and come together with our spouse. It's such a beautiful thing to hear what's even on their heart. Because like Randall and I have made it a habit, and every season we have to switch it up a little bit. So before he leaves now for work, and it used to be when, we were working outside the house and we were both working, just before we both left, that we come together and pray over things in the morning, specific things, pray over our kids and safety and all of that. And it melts my heart to hear what's going on in his head. And then when I'm praying, of course, it's the things that are bothering me, and I'm bringing those things out as well. So you really get to see that inside to your spouse when you open up in that way. And it's not as crazy and complicated. And I love how you were saying, Ginger, that you do it, you guide them even and do it in front of them, because it helps show them what that looks like and how natural. So it's not just God is good, God is great, let us thank him for our food, amen. Because that's a ritual, a routine. It's cute and stuff for when you're little and you're learning how to pray, but it needs to become more mature at some point where we're actually, talking to God in a more friend-like relationship way. So the next part in the book, they talked about making time in these 4 scheduled touch points. And so touch point 1, the daily check-in, which we talked a little bit about. Touch point 2, the daily prayer time, which we also talked about. And you have your own prayer time, but also with your spouse, having that time that y'all are coming together, or you with your children that y'all are coming together and praying. And then touch point 3, the weekly date nights, how important that is. And I know, enjoying your blended family, that's something that we're huge on. And just because we believe it with everything in us that you need a weekly date night doesn't mean that we actually succeed at getting a weekly date night. But it is a goal that we have to shoot for. Like, we know it's important. We need to spend quality time together. We need fun to be a part of our weekly routine together. And I enjoyed how it said in the book this isn't a family meeting. That's actually priority planning number 4. This isn't a time that you're hashing out all the drama with the kids and stuff, or work issues. This is a time for you to connect on a more intimate level. Are there some things that y'all have learned in your life to be able to prioritize that time in your relationship?
I think so. Heidi, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, one of my favorite sayings, having been a small business owner most of our lives, is you don't start a business, hang a shingle on the door, and then just sit back. You can't do that with your spouse either. It takes work. And again, that word intentional just keeps coming up because it's really important. And whatever season you're in your life, you can always make time for date night or spouse. And it doesn't have to be expensive, it can be creative. Put it on the calendar. Oh, that's not super sexy, but guess what? It makes sure it gets done. Now, what's always worked really good in our relationship, and now obviously we're empty nesters and we have nobody to stop us date. So it's like a one continual date, 24/7. Just
Yeah.
kidding. Um, but I plan one date a month and he plans the other date. So I'm planning a date, and this is also important. I'm planning a date, not something that I want to do, but I'm planning to serve my spouse in this date. So
Right.
we're not going to go get a pedicure and manicure on the date that I do because Kenny would die if somebody touched his feet. So um, we have to really be doing that and being intentional. And then remember, you can have a date for 15 minutes with popcorn and just talking and sitting and staring at each other in your bedroom with the door locked after the kids go to bed. You have to just be creative and be intentional. So everybody has different styles. Ginger, you talked about the love language, which I love. So knowing your spouse's love language will help you to plan a date for them. And on our website for Marriage in Motion 365, we actually have what's called an intimate pursuit inventory. And you can go fill it out and you answer all the questions and then you hand it to your spouse. And they have no question on how to date you because all of the answers are right there in front of them.
That's
And
good.
you can just fill that out and then have a piece of paper to hand them and say, here, make a date. And they'll know exactly what to do.
Yeah, I had never thought of that, that making a date for the other individual. And I was at a conference, at a seminar with another gal, and they're blended as well. And she said, no, we once a month plan a date as a priority to that other person. And I wouldn't have thought of that. We have a lot of the same interests that we like to do. We like to boat and razor and things like that. And we try and take that time, even though that we have the two little ones with us the majority of the time when we're doing those types of activities. It's you can still make intentional time in those times, even when the kids are with you, because it's still you're still being able to have a check-in in those moments. So I do like that idea, planning for the other person. And so I like that you put the inventory sheet on your webpage.
Yeah, it really helps.
Yeah, well,
Takes the
definitely.
guesswork out of it.
Enjoying Your Blended Family has 1,000,001 ideas, whether it be something that's cost effective and beyond. There are so many fun ideas
Yes.
that Randall and Scarlett have put out there as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
they put the
definitely
rest of
try
us to shame.
to give all of those ideas so that it isn't like, oh, it feels like it costs a lot of money. So I love like all of that. I'm going to share the resource that you have with them as far as getting that date night, which is intimate pursuit. Is that what you said?
Yeah, intimate pursuit inventory.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes so that they will have that as well. And for this episode, I'll go ahead and share. We have our family date nights or couple date nights that we have. Like you can make, I actually have the little bucket right here because I was sharing it with one of our coaching clients yesterday. And it's just colored sticks in here with, this has 90 different date ideas in here, and they're color coded by the cost. So if you're going to stay home or if you're going to go out, it's the free activities. If it's red, it's a free at home. If it's orange, it's you're going out and it's free, or like a $20 date at home or a $20 date out, all the way up to like we're balling. We just got the income tax check back.
We're going out.
But we got some extra money to spend. We're gonna go and spend more than $100 on this, all the way to that kind of date. And so these are just little ideas on how you can prioritize and be very intentional in that, and then putting it on the calendar, like Heidi said. Which, if you haven't heard from Ginger yet on what her app is all about, is getting that on the calendar. Yes, it also helps with co-parenting and keeping all of the schedules in order and having group messages and having documents for your family on there. But it also helps you plan all the other little things too and stay on track with each other. So when you are planning these dates and you're saying, okay, we're going to do this twice a month, my time, your time, and then go ahead and get that in the app and get it organized or on your planner, whatever that looks like for you, on how y'all can all be on the same page. But finding a system where you can all be on the same page is important as well. You want to make sure you invite your husband to the date that you have going on, that you're planning in your head, right? Instead of like, oh, I thought we were going on a date tonight because I've been planning this for a while. And then the touch point number 4 is the weekly marriage and family business meeting. So it's similar to like, you want to be intentional and have a date with them or time with them, but this is when you talk business. And this is just as important as the fun stuff, because as we talked in previous episodes, there's a lot going on in your family. There's a lot of different things that are being scheduled. There's usually one parent carrying that load of remembering everything for everybody else. And so to come together and say, hey, I have this on this day, or, I need help with picking up the kids or picking up the grocery order, or who can take off this week in order to get the kid to this doctor's appointment. All of those things need to be discussed. And in the book, they talk about doing it as a couple first, and then have the meeting with the whole family so that they're on board as well. But do it as a couple so you can hash out some of these things so that they're not seeing it individually, or they're not seeing you have to work through some things that might come up.
Right. I agree with that. And I love that they said work through it first together. I'm sure you guys would agree. In a version of a nuclear family, it works one way. In a version of a blended family, it works completely different. And I think that it's important that children from both sides, whether you've blended them and then you add biological children together, you want the kids to view everything the same as far as the parents having a united front. And James and I actually just spoke on this earlier today. Kids are like sharks. And so once they see you bleed, they're coming after that spot. And that this is a huge weakness in blended couples, is that when the children see the weakness, they're going to go after that. So if you can minimize where your weak spots are before you have your family meeting, I think that is vital. And a big part of that is who's picking up, who's dropping off, who's doing custody exchanges, who's packing the lunches. All of those maintenance things that you arguing about them or having a minor discussion over those types of things, those are little. And so they turn into big problems when you do it in front of the children. If you can minimize those and get those knocked off, it's easier when you go to roll call in your family meeting and you're saying, Dad's picking up all the Tuesdays, Dad's picking up Thursdays. They actually think you're stronger together at that point than maybe you even really are. But if they see that you guys have already commanded it out, it's on the calendar, everybody's on the same page, and they're just seeing it verbatim that way instead of watching you argue and see your weakness, make sure your weaknesses are behind closed doors and that you work those out before you're presenting those to the kids. I think it's so important in your family meeting to not spend that time bickering as a couple, but showing them you're a united front. And this is how this is how our team is going to run this week.
Yeah. So good. And then Heidi, did you have anything that you want to add to that as well?
Well, I know for our oldest son, switching was really hard for him. He has ADHD, so it was felt really chaotic. So for him, as long as he had preview of what his week was looking like, he did a lot better. So instant change for him was really hard. So having the family business planning meeting with the schedule on the wall, or, now that they would probably have an app, but we had it on the wall. He knew where he was going to be for the whole month. What days were switch days, what days was he at his dad's, what days was he here at our house. And so Kenny and I were able to get all of that, like Ginger said, out and figured out before we came to him, so that he was calm and understanding what his role was. And that helps to build that security that the children need so much, especially because we all know that God did not design divorce. And unfortunately, we have divorce, but this is one way we can bring back that stability to our children, is making sure that, again, like Ginger said, we've got those things planned out beforehand, and then we include them, make them feel like they're part of it. So you can make them, help them decide maybe what's going for dinner this week or whatnot, but they're part of the decision making in the calendar after you guys have already made all those hard, big decisions that they don't need to be part of.
Right. Right.
Man, y'all both said it so well. And that when you do this, because I do think like in a blended family, it feels like, okay, when, like we said earlier, like, what does that look like to put God first? What does that look like to put your marriage first? And when you're doing it the right way, when you're doing marriage the way that God intended it, nobody truly does feel like they are third place, like they said in the book, because the way you're prioritizing. So when you are putting your marriage and prioritizing this time to talk on this, and you're coming together like a united front, your kids able to see that, and it gives them that security of, my mom and dad, this is a safe place. Like, I can trust that what's happening in our home is not going to end like it did last time. And it just really gives them that peace of mind when you can come together. When you do it the right way and you come together, you are truly serving your children in the best possible way. And which that leads us into the third priority, which is our children. And this part of the chapter, like I said earlier, like I wanted to do chapters 3 and 4 today, but this just had so much richness. Like even this episode, you know, is a little longer than we probably would normally go, but it's so much good practical stuff. Like you are walking away with, like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And I suggest pick one thing to start with, do that, master it, then pick the other, and let God, as the priorities set in motion, find the thing that we said today or that the book said today to prioritize your time with God, and start there. Let him be the strength for you to be able to start prioritizing your marriage, and then pick something in that. And then let him be the thing that helps prioritize this next section, because this is an area that we still struggle with in our household. And that is prioritizing our family time over all the other demands that come our way, because we are servants to the core of who we are. Randall and I both are. And we will give and give and give until there's nothing left. And there are people in your lives that will suck and suck and suck from you like a vampire until there is nothing left. And how can we put these things into motion so that you are guarding your family? And the 2 points that they made, the 2 rules of prioritizing family time, when I was listening to this today, just getting it fresh in my head, I came home and I told Riley, listen to this. So good. So good. These are the 2 things that you have to do. Rule 1, make weekends and evenings with the kids sacred. This is your family time. And culture wants to take that and put you on a cell phone, put you in front of a TV, or put you on a soccer field or some sort of place in your car where you're not together. And like we talked about in the issues that come with extracurricular a couple of weeks ago, we are not against extracurricular, but your time with your family if that is in trouble, that is like a alarm going off. You need to focus on that before you start doing all of these other things. And then number 2 is say no to things, which I also really suck at. So give me some of y'all's best advice, information on that. Who wants to start out?
I'll take that one. That is easy peasy for me. So our children stretch from there's a 20-year age gap between our boys. So we have 26, 20, 18, 9, and 5. All the kids are different. All of them are interested in different things, but the priority was on transition day when they came back, they knew church was the priority. And if it wasn't hit on Saturday, it would be hit on Sunday morning. But what they are servants as well. And James and I have served in different areas in the church, but making church the priority as a family tends to lead that way towards home. So a big component for us was we went to church on Saturday and we served, period. We would have dinner either at the church, at the bistro at the church, or we would come home. Having dinner around the dinner table was a priority during the week. no TV Sunday through Thursday. It makes their academics better. We could do a board game, we can do Legos, we can do whatever it is, but not having technology on from Sunday night to Thursday night, unless it was a treat. If everything was done and we feel that it would be time that an episode of something came out, that's different. But being able to connect with the kids, talk about their day, talk about what's going on, it just opened up for better communication. And most of the time, you would find the older kids reading a book or being in a book series, and then they would pass that book series. All three of them are readers. So even to this day, as adults, they still pass books to each other. Like, hey, I just read this. You probably want to read this. And so you're setting a priority for quiet time or personal time, but you're also doing it as a family. So making sure that there's plenty of technology time. And so let them do that at school or not in the face of family, but just making sure that dinner was around the dinner table most nights, and making sure that you're serving at the church and you're having dinner together even then. Just setting those different prioritizations in your life. It doesn't mean that our kids aren't in sports. They are, but making sure that they all knew that church comes before anything else. And if church is missed due to a competition or a tournament, that you will end up going on Sunday, but let's just try and keep it a pattern for Saturday. So again, we practice our Sabbath on a Saturday. And when your kids start to see that, they start to give themselves permission to have a Sabbath as well, even as adults.
I love that.
Yeah, Ginger, we share a lot of the same philosophies, and I hope I don't step on anybody's toes, especially being here in Texas, where sports are considered, I would almost say, a god in a lot of families. And unfortunately, a lot of the couples that we counsel, we have one couple that we've worked with who has 4 daughters, and each of those daughters are in 2 or 3 sports per season. So you can imagine what that's like, trying to get 4 children to 3 different things a week with only 2 parents to do that. And their marriage is suffering. And so what we did in our family is, like you, Ginger, every night was around the table, unless we went out to dinner or we had a family function, but that was sacred time for us. And Kenny never experienced that as a child. So for him, it was such a new thing to actually sit around and everybody discuss their day and check in, what's going good, what's going wrong. And then the other thing for us was our children were in 1 sport per season. You weren't allowed to play soccer or softball or dance at the same time. It was 1 sport per season for every child, because that way it was like you're focusing on that, you're enjoying it. You're not going to injure yourself probably too, but there's only so many people that can cart your children around, and you want to be there and make them your priority and be able to cheer them on the sidelines. But if you have more than 1 or 2 children, getting them all to a different sport on the same day is impossible. So I just think it's really important to make sure that your children understand that sports can be a huge, amazing part of your life. So can extracurricular stuff, like you said, Scarlett. But we have to answer to God someday, and he's not going to say, wow, you were a great football player. He's going to say, what did you do with my son? And so, like you, Ginger, I love the fact that you are prioritizing church for your kids.
For sure. I think it's a huge component, and I think it probably was the strongest pillar in blending our family, because the kids all knew where the structure came from, and the Bible states, if you build on shifting sand, you will shift. And if you build on a solid foundation, you will stand when the storm comes. And the storms are going to come. I mean, I think that as we all have adult children, the storm comes to those adult children, but they handle it better because they know what the resource is, where to come back to, and what the solid ground is. So I think that just shadowing that for the younger kids, or the people, I'm sure blending is at all ages, whether you're blending adult children or you're blending young children. If you don't show, again, that united front in your marriage, and you don't show that God is the priority, and you don't specifically say it and practice it, your kids think that it can shift for you as well. And you need to make sure that that's not how your foundation, the fundamental of your house and your team is set up.
Yeah, y'all both so much good points in that, where it comes to these things that we do tend to prioritize over that time with the kids or over our family time. And we have to be careful because it is good stuff. Even good stuff can come and prioritize over our family time, which is in a blend. It takes time, and it needs you to spend that time together. And then just that reminder that even church doesn't equal putting God first.
No.
All the stuff we talked about earlier about your personal relationship with God is what's most important. Just going and sitting in church is not going to help. Like, okay, I put God first because I sit on a pew on Sunday morning, or I go and I serve and do all of these things. It's amazing. And you need to do that. And it's part of the calling that God has put on us. And we each need to step up as Christians to do our part in order for other people out in the world to learn who he is, and for our kids to witness what that looks like. But don't allow church or serving to also become priority over God, your time with God, your time with your spouse, and your time with your children. So all of them are good things, but make sure that if your family's struggling right now, you step back from serving from a season and you just go sit in the pew together as a family. Randall and I were just having this discussion with someone else because he was getting burnt out, when you're on the worship team and you're on, they need you every single week, and he doesn't get to sit with his spouse. She serves in the sound booth and he serves on the stage, and they don't ever actually get to sit together in church. And so if everybody stepped up and did their parts in church, we wouldn't have it all fall on just a few people. Yeah. But it is so very important for you to still be able to see the difference there and see, check in with God. What do we need to do in this season? And then show your kids the priority of church, that we do choose to go to church over the softball field on a Sunday morning, or, maybe an exception to the rule every once in a while, but we make it work. And luckily with church now, they have different options and different times so that you can do that. And then I did want to hit on, because I know we got to wrap up since we've been on here for a little while, but what you had said, Ginger, about no TV. We never made that a rule, like a Sunday through Thursday rule, but God at the beginning of summer put it on my heart because I felt pulled in so many different directions. He said, and it wasn't a command. He just said, stop turning the TV on and see how much you can accomplish by this time next year. So at the beginning of summer, I stopped turning on the TV, and I do see such a huge difference in just relationship building, because if I don't turn it on, a lot of times time passes, an hour or so, and nobody else has turned it on, and we're just still talking, having conversation. And then it's sometimes I do start fiending for it. I'm not going to lie. I'll be like, don't you want to watch something right now? Because I miss it. I do miss it. It is a habit that we have put in our life. But I don't turn it on during the day, because I was turning it on while I was here by myself because I need noise in the background. So I was working with it on in the background, and it really has changed things, just being the one to say, I'm not going to turn it on, and then letting conversations happen, or other, choosing to do other things. So you don't want to just replace the TV with your phone, because we're a creature of habit of just replacing one bad habit with another bad habit. And well, God said, don't do this. So I'm going to just, I'm not supposed to drink soda, but I'm going to go over and get this sweet tea. And, it's they're both bad for you. You're fasting one in order to replace it with something else bad. But seeking that time with him and seeing, what do you want for our family during this season, Lord? What does that look like? How can we prioritize our time together? And then start to say it. It said it in the book, and it's just facts. What you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. Yeah. So if you say yes to volunteering, if you say yes to this season of leading a group, or say yes to this sport that your kid's doing, or yes to going out with your friends, over and over again, all of these yeses are equaling no to something else. So what are you sacrificing in the end when you're saying yes over here? The opportunity cost concept. And so I want us to pray over that before we get off today. But is there anything else either one of y'all just want to add before we wrap this chapter up?
The thing that stood out for me in this chapter, and it reiterates constantly, and I'm sure you guys recognize it as well. Once your child goes out the door, the time is gone. The percentage of time that you get with your children that have aged out of your home, it's gone. And I hear so many parents say, oh, I used to love when we do this, or I wish we could have done this. If you don't take the opportunity when they're in your care, or when you're there to raise and guide them, it's gone. And so, and with blended families, sometimes it's cut in half. And so try not to be the parent, whether they're blended or biological or however your family is structured, to look back and regret the time that you had, even if it was cut down to half. You need to optimize every moment that you have with them, because you're there to guide them. You are put in their life, whether it's a bonus parent or a biological parent, whatever that looks like. You're there to guide them and teach them. And when they return home, that's a blessing. When you get to do family adult activities and your children are still connected, you see I've seen too many parents that wonder why their children have disconnected from the family. And it's because they were either trying to give them too many monetary things, because they thought that's how life was going to fulfill them. Those children just go on to look for monetary things to fulfill them in their adult life. But if children have your time, they're going to continue to seek your time, even as adults. And that is relationship. And that's what God calls us to do, is to be in relationship with one another. So as parents, continue to seek your spouse and teach them, and continue to seek your children so that they do that in their life as well. Be the good role model for them in your marriage, in your relationship with God, and as a parent. That's really what these couple chapters say to me, is make sure that you're setting a good example for God to see you're doing what you're supposed to do, your spouse, so that they know that they're being pursued, and your children.
Yeah, definitely a good priority check right there. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, Ginger.
Well, I was going to say on page 78, where Vanessa and Scott say a strong marriage makes strong children, and godly marriages make kingdom families. One of the things that we tell people all the time, especially blended families, is if a bad marriage harmed your children, a good marriage, a godly marriage can heal them. And that's really what this is about, is healing your children, healing your marriage, healing your, just the whole family.
I agree.
Man, this episode, I mean, and again, I know it went a little longer than probably we normally do, but it was all of it, every bit of this, what we talked about today, and that they talk about in the book. And again, we just hit these small parts of the book. So get the book and read the rest. But all of that is just such good wisdom and nuggets for you to have a successful blend. And if you're listening to this podcast, I know that you desire that for your family. You want it to be at its best and have that kingdom family. And so we're going to pray. If y'all will just pray in agreement with me. I just want to cover anyone that is listening today, Father God, that this book is ordained by you, Lord. It's brought to us, blended and redeemed, is filled with your biblical principles. And as we talk today about those priorities, Lord, of putting you first, and then our marriage and our kids, if it brought any kind of conviction to someone that's listening today, Lord, I thank you that you're going to show them what the answer is, either from the things that we talked about today. Give them a clear path and direction on where they need to start for their family. That our hearts is not that anyone feels condemned, that they feel like they've messed up or they've done it wrong for all of this time, Lord, but that they're hearing your voice today through our voice here, and each of the different talking points as we talk about through Scott and Vanessa's voice, Lord. And as all they're doing is really taking your biblical principles and putting it into action for us. So each person that's listening today, begin to show them clear steps on what they need to do next, how they can prioritize you first. And Lord, as they do that, I thank you that you're going to pour your blessings out on their marriage. And Lord, show them very practical ways that they can prioritize their marriage. And as they choose to do that, that you're pouring out your favor and blessing on their children, Lord, and on their family. And what statistically shows should not succeed what you have brought together here, when they do it your way, Lord, people see their family and they see hope. They see the light. They see Jesus when they see them. And it doesn't mean because they're doing it perfect, Lord, but that they're aligning their visions and their goals and their plans with you. Help them to see the things that they need to say yes to, and the things that they need to say no to, so that their children in their home feel loved and seen and appreciated and a part of something that is beautiful and not a part of something that is broken. We are so grateful that you are a redeeming God and that you are redeeming these families now. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, ladies. Thank you guys so much for teaming up with me today as we are talking here to our B fam. And B fam, I'm just excited for what God is doing in your family. When I am praying and when we are talking, I'm hearing them talk and share these advice, I can feel it to the core of who I am, that people's lives are going to be changed because of it, because you took the obedience of listening to this today and took small little pieces, and the prayer that we prayed. God is doing big things in your family. And what you might even feel like I'm ready to throw in the towel, you have hope now and things that you can cling on to. So we're going to continue this for as long as the ladies will keep showing up with me and we work our way through the book. But then get the book, let that sink in, and then lead a group for yourself. Lead a group in your community, in your church, with your friend group, whatever that looks like. Let God do what God can do in your life, and then help be that hands and feet in other people's lives as well. And when we do that, it is this huge ripple effect in the body of Christ. So I'm excited to see where that takes you. So again, thank you, Heidi and Ginger, for taking your time today and helping speak into the lives of our B fam as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scarlett. You guys have a great day.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has been a blessing and encouraged your family journey.
Make sure you stay connected with us and join our weekly Blended Family newsletter. We send an email out every Friday morning full of support and encouragement.
And when you join, we also want to give you a free gift. So go get yours today. The link is in the show notes below.
Have an amazing day. Remember to enjoy the journey with your blended family, and we'll see you on the next episode.